If you're thinking about going Italian this holiday season, this blonde lasagna is the perfect recipe. Stay tuned to see how I get it put together. This recipe starts off with 1 full pack of grilled chicken breast fillets from Tyson, as well as a half of a pack of the frozen Tyson shredded chicken. I'm adding about 2 cups to 2.5 cups of chicken broth, and this is all going to cook together and help thaw the chicken as well as bring it some juiciness to those breasts. So I'm using 1 stick of unsalted butter, and I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil to this pot, and this is going to all melt together. And then while it is melting, we're going to add our flour, which is going to help make the roux. So once it's all melted, we're going to add about 2.5 to 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. We're going to give this a nice stir, and this is going to help make the gravy. Now, you don't want it to get it too brown if possible, but you want to get it dark enough so that way it doesn't have a floury taste. I'm adding in the vegetables, which is a half a cup of diced white onions, which was frozen. I chopped up some mushrooms, those little white button mushrooms, about 2 cups, and I also added about a half a cup of yellow bell pepper. Because this is a blonde lasagna, I was trying to make sure that I keep my vegetables a little bit on the light color. I'm also going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic after you have already sauteed your vegetables. The garlic, you don't want it to burn, so you want to make sure that you give that a good stir and mix that all in. Once you get that all mixed in, we're going to add about 2 cups of the half and half. You can use regular milk if you like, but the half and half is going to give it a nice rich texture to this roux. And you can see how it's nice and thick and it's starting to, come together. Now I'm going to add my seasonings, and you can add your seasonings according to what you like. I'm adding about a teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of the Tony Chachere's Cajun seasoning, a pinch of salt, and I'm also going to add a little bit of Italian seasoning to this as well. This is all going to get stirred up, and you see how nice and thick that is. Now don't get scared, because we are going to thin this out because we want this to have some extra looseness to this, because it's going to go over our oven ready lasagna strips. Now, it looks like I poured too much of the Italian seasonings. Don't worry, because remember, we did not add any seasonings or anything to the chicken breast that was cooked inside of the broth. So this is just going to all help, marinate together, and it's just going to help it all come together with the unseasoned chicken. Now, once you get your roux, you're going to add all that butter. We're going to also, not butter, but the broth, but we're going to also add 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese. And the cream cheese almost got frozen, so that's why it looked a little chunky, but it still added nice rich flavor. And I went and added my chicken breast to this. Now, one thing you can do, which I do show later in the picture, I added the chicken breast in now, but it's better to shred the chicken up before you add it to your gravy mix or your roux, your white sauce. And I realized that it was going to be a little bit hard trying to break it up in there. So what I did is I took out all of those large chicken breast fillets and I placed it inside of a bowl, and then I used a couple forks and I shredded it, and then I added it back to the pot as you see I am doing here. And those are nice hefty chunks, because when we make this lasagna, we want it to be nice and meaty. So this is the sauce that we're going to use for our lasagna, and because I didn't want this to be slacking in the meat. I want everyone to taste a bite of meat when they get into that lasagna. And I decided to do this recipe because, of course, as my blonde beefaroni, a lot of people have allergies or they can't do the acidic the acid in the tomatoes. So I figured, let's try to do a white lasagna. Plus, this was a request from my coworker who had been harassing me for almost a year to make this recipe. So I figured I'd do this for her. Now, I just added some of those seasonings to make sure that all the flavors are layered together. And that was the Italian seasoning as well as a little bit of pepper to that roux. And I have it on a simmer. And right now, I'm putting together the mascarpone cheese, a little ricotta cheese. And as you can see, I'm putting the mascarpone cheese now. This is going to add the extra creaminess. Now, if you like cottage cheese, you can add the cottage cheese, which is some people traditionally use when they're making a lasagna. I just kind of wanted something a little rich and a little more Italian-like. So I'm just adding a little bit of Italian seasoning and a little pepper. I'm not adding much salt because the cheeses that we're going to use for this recipe, they are going to be full of salt anyway. So I'm just going to give that a mix, and that's going to be our filler to add with our chicken filling. You see how nice and creamy that is? So we're using some mild white cheddar. I have some sliced mozzarella cheese. I have some sharp white cheddar. I have smoked provolone, yes, deli slice. This is going to be a cheesy lasagna. And of course, our Parmesan cheese. So we are just going to do our traditional way that you do lasagna. I'm using, like I said in the beginning, some oven-ready lasagna sheets. So I'm just going to spray this baking dish with a little bit of Pam because I don't want the lasagna to stick. And I'm going to add some of the sauce at the bottom of it because we want our lasagna sheets to cook really well. And because I'm using one hand, I wanted to pull this pan as close to the pot as possible to keep from dripping it onto the counter, which I still ended up dripping some anyway. But as you can see, I am about to put the lasagna sheets on top of the sauce. And when I added that chicken broth to the sauce, it thinned it out. So that way the lasagna sheets can cook really, really well in the oven. And I'm going to add some sauce on top of the sheets. As you can see, what I'm doing here. And you can make your sauce lighter. It has a little bit of a gray tint because I did let my roux cook a little longer than it was supposed to. But you could cook it however you like. You could do the more of a white type look. You won't cook it for as long as I did. You want to keep it on the light side. And I'm doing my dollops of my ricotta, mascarpone, and Parmesan cheese mixture. And I'm just going to place it on top. This is just going to be a nice, cheesy, rich lasagna. I mean, the ricotta cheese, the ricotta cheese, the mascarpone cheese. So you have your Parmesan cheese. I mean, this recipe is so rich and full of flavor because of all the different cheeses. I mean, your family will love this. I mean, especially when you want to try something different than your traditional lasagna. Now, like I said, I wanted to do something to help accommodate those who may not want to, do the tomato sauce, who may not be able to tolerate tomato sauce. Now, this recipe can be made vegetarian by using either pieces of zucchini. You could do strips of zucchini. You can use spinach. You can use a vegetarian protein if you like. This is a very versatile recipe. I'm sprinkling on some of the Parmesan cheese here. And then I'm going to now add my smoked provolone cheese slices on there. And once I add my smoked provolone cheese, then we're going to add our other cheeses. Now, if you don't like any of these cheeses, you could go ahead and use like a cheddar mix, 3 blend, Italian blend, whichever. I'm adding my sliced sharp white cheddar cheese on here, and this is just going to add so much depth of flavor. I'm telling you, you got to have these cheeses. I mean, the richness. Oh, at the end of this video, you're going to go crazy when you see the stretch. We want this lasagna nice and cheesy. Now, you can use vegetarian cheese if you like, and it will come out just as good. As a matter of fact, I'm planning to do a vegetarian version of this recipe in the future. And I did say vegetarian, not vegan. No harm to the vegans out there, but I just feel it's a little easier to do the vegetarian version versus the vegan version. But, that's in the future. But we're just going to finish up this and doing our layers. And once we get these cheeses on here, we are also going to add a little bit more sauce before we add our next strip of pasta, because we want to make sure, like I said, to make sure the pasta get well covered with the sauce from the chicken, so that way the pasta can cook all the way. Now, if you don't like the oven baked pasta, you can do the traditional lasagna sheets and pre-cook them halfway and then spread them out on your inside of your pan and do the same layering method and just follow these steps. And we're just spreading it along here and getting it all covered, and then we're going to put more of the lasagna sheets. Now, because I had extra lasagna filling, I ended up, for some reason, I got a call or a visit from my mother right in the middle of me doing this recipe. So while she was watching me do this video, she kind of pleaded with me, well, don't you have enough? You should make a little pan for me. So as a nice loving daughter, as I was topping off my lasagna to get placed in the oven, I went ahead and made her a portion. Now, this is just finishing up my lasagna here. I am adding the last little toppings. I added some more of that chicken mixture on there. I'm adding the shredded white cheddar cheese, sprinkling on a little Parmesan, a pinch of Italian, and this is going to get covered in the oven. I'm going to use a little parchment paper, and then I'm going to put some foil on it, and it's going to get covered in the oven and bake at 375 for a good 35 minutes. And then I'm going to remove it from the oven, remove the foil and the parchment paper, and it's going to bake for an additional 20 minutes. This is the small pan that I was making for my mom with the leftovers, because she just felt, she had to have some, and the surprise visit really caught me off guard, but it's a good thing that I did have leftovers. So I was able to make a pan for her, and she was just so excited. I mean, she wanted to make sure that I did it exactly how I did mine. She did not want me to slack on the cheese. She did not want me to slack on the sauce. She wanted everything. I mean, everything on it. So because this pan was small, I was only able to do just a simple one layer where she had the pasta at the bottom and the pasta at the top. And then I put the sauce. But she didn't care how many layers it was. She was just happy to get her own pan to take home with her. And this is her dancing. She's so excited that she's getting her own lasagna. After it baked in the oven, covered for those 25 minutes or 30 minutes, and then another 20 uncovered, this is how it looked. 50 minutes of cooking. All the cheeses have melted. It has that nice, and then I let it rest for about a good 20 minutes before I decided to cut this. But of course, some of the cheeses were still starting to leak, so you might want to wait about a good 40 minutes before you cut your lasagna. But look at all that cheese that it oozes out. This lasagna was delicious. Oh, all the flavors. And that cream cheese really added the flavor. So, if you like this recipe, please click like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if this is something you want to try this holiday season. A little something different. Something Italian, something rich in flavor that your family will go crazy over. This blonde lasagna is the best for you and your family. Thank you for watching. God bless, and I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday season. Thanks for watching.